The wind was sharp that Christmas Eve afternoon, biting through coats and scarves as the small town of Maplewood hustled in and out of glowing shop fronts. Laughter, jingling bells, and the scent of cinnamon filled the air. But amid the holiday sparkle, a little girl's voice rose softly from the back seat of an old pickup truck, cutting through the cheer like a whisper of sorrow. "Daddy, why is she selling bread on Christmas Eve?" 6-year-old Aria's wide brown eyes were fixed on a street corner, where a woman stood beside a small wooden table, her hands red from the cold. A cardboard sign read, "Fresh bread, please help." Behind her, a tiny boy no older than 3 was bundled in a too-thin jacket, clutching his knees as snowflakes melted in his hair. Her father, Mark Callahan, a 34-year-old single dad and construction worker, tightened his grip on the steering wheel. The woman's face looked familiar, something about her posture, the quiet resignation. He slowed the truck unconsciously, his heart tugging in a way he couldn't explain. The Christmas carol playing softly on the radio, Silent Night, suddenly felt unbearably heavy. Before we continue this story, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of humanity, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel, Kindness Journal. Your support helps us spread real stories that touch hearts and remind the world that goodness still exists. Mark's life hadn't been easy. 3 years ago, his wife, Clara, had passed away after a long illness, leaving him to raise Aria alone. Since then, Christmas had been less about gifts and glitter and more about just getting through the season without breaking down. He worked double shifts, sometimes skipped meals so Aria could have enough, and never complained, but the loneliness had settled deep in his bones. That's why he noticed her, the woman selling bread in the snow, because she looked like she, too, carried a quiet battle behind her tired eyes. Aria tugged at his sleeve. "Daddy, can we buy some bread from her, please?" He hesitated. His wallet had barely enough for groceries and a small toy he'd hidden under the truck seat for a Christmas morning surprise. But when he saw the little boy shiver again, his heart broke. "All right," he said softly. He parked nearby and took Aria's small mittened hand. The snow crunched under their boots as they walked toward the woman. Up close, her cheeks were flushed with cold, her eyes a shade of green that seemed almost translucent in the winter light. She tried to smile as they approached. "Merry Christmas," she said, her voice soft but trembling. "Would you like some fresh bread? It's still warm." "How much?" Mark asked, though his throat felt tight. $3 a loaf," she replied quickly, glancing down as if afraid of being judged. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a crumpled $10 bill. "We'll take 2, he said. When she tried to give him change, he shook his head. "Keep it." Her eyes filled instantly. "Thank you. You don't know what that means." Mark smiled faintly and nodded, but Aria wasn't done. She crouched down beside the little boy. "Hi, I'm Aria. What's your name?" The boy peeked shyly from behind his mother's coat. "Jamie," he whispered. "Jamie, do you have a Christmas tree?" Aria asked. He shook his head. "No. Mommy says maybe next year." Aria turned to her father, her face full of that innocent, impossible hope children carry like a gift. "Daddy, can Jamie come see our tree?" The woman looked startled. "Oh, no, sweetheart. That's very kind, but we couldn't possibly." But Mark saw the desperation she tried to hide, the way her fingers trembled as she brushed snow off her bread. "It's all right," he said quietly. "We live just a few blocks away. It's warm, and we've got cocoa. You're welcome to join us for a bit, if you'd like." For a long moment she said nothing, then she nodded, tears catching the light of the nearby street lamps. "Thank you, I thank you." Their small house was nothing fancy. The paint was fading and the porch light flickered, but inside it was warm, filled with the faint scent of pine and the soft glow of a modest Christmas tree. Aria led Jamie straight to the corner where handmade ornaments dangled. proudly explaining how she and Daddy made each one. The woman introduced herself as Lena, and as she warmed her hands around the mug of cocoa Mark offered, she began to open up bit by bit. She used to be a baker, she said, running a small cafe with her husband before life took a cruel turn. Her husband had passed away suddenly last spring, leaving behind debts she hadn't known existed. The bakery had been seized and she'd been evicted. Since then, she'd been staying in a small shelter, baking bread in a borrowed kitchen and selling it on the streets to feed Jamie. Mark listened quietly. He didn't interrupt or pity her, just listened. When she finished, there was a silence heavy with understanding. "You're doing what you can," he said finally. "That takes strength, more than most people have." Lena smiled faintly, looking down. "It doesn't feel like strength most days, just survival," he nodded. "I know that feeling." That evening they shared a simple dinner of soup and bread, her bread still soft and warm from the oven. The house filled with laughter for the first time in months, as Aria and Jamie built towers out of cookies, giggling each time they collapsed. For a few fleeting hours, the world outside seemed far away. When Lena and Jamie prepared to leave later that night, the snow had grown heavier. Mark offered to drive them back to the shelter, but when they arrived, they found the door locked early for the holiday. A note taped to the door said, "Closed until December 26th. Lena froze. "Oh no, they weren't supposed to close tonight." "I don't." She turned to him helplessly. "I have nowhere else to go." Mark looked at Aria asleep in the back seat, then at Lena clutching her son close to keep him warm. Something inside him shifted, a quiet, resolute decision born not of charity, but of empathy. "You can stay with us," he said, "just until they open again. It's Christmas Eve. Nobody should be out in this cold." Lena tried to protest, but he simply smiled. "I insist." The next morning, sunlight filtered through the frosted windows, painting the small living room in soft gold. Aria squealed when she saw the presents under the tree and ran to wake Jamie. But when Lena came out of the guest room, her eyes fell on the kitchen table, and she froze. There, wrapped neatly in ribbon, were several paper bags filled with flour, sugar, and yeast, baking supplies Mark had somehow managed to buy late last night. A small note rested on top. "Let's start over, together." Tears filled her eyes. "Mark, you didn't have to." He smiled. "I wanted to. I've been looking for something real for a long time. Maybe we both have." That Christmas morning, the tiny kitchen came alive with the scent of freshly baked bread. Aria and Jamie danced around the table, while Lena laughed for the first time in months. Neighbors stopped by, drawn by the smell, and before noon, every loaf was sold out. Someone even suggested Lena open a new bakery in town. By New Year's, word had spread. The sign outside the small rented storefront read Aria's and Jamie's Bakery, a taste of second chances. And every morning, Mark helped Lena knead dough before heading to work, while their children played by the window. The woman who once sold bread in the cold now baked it in warmth, surrounded by family, hope, and love. As snow fell gently outside their bakery window that next Christmas Eve, Aria looked up at her father and whispered, "Daddy, do you think Santa gave her a new home because we helped her?" Mark smiled, wrapping his arm around her. "No, sweetheart, I think you did." She grinned. "Then maybe we can help more people next year." He nodded, his eyes glistening. "That's the best Christmas wish I've ever heard." If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to Kindness Journal. Your small action helps spread compassion to millions of hearts across the world. Special request: comment below what's the kindest thing you've ever done or seen someone do on Christmas. Let's fill this space with stories that warm the soul.